This is Pastor Joel. This is the Super Chill podcast.
Super chill.
It is a beautiful February evening. It is ice cold. Got Mr. Chris Flanagan here in seat number 2.
As always.
Pastor Jake in number 3.
Pastor Jake.
California is beautiful this time of year.
It is.
It's chilly for us, but not as cold as it is in Texas right now.
We're so cold. We had to put our flip-flops away. It's 61
Oh
degrees.
my
Right.
goodness. The last couple of days though have made me appreciate being in California, as we obviously pray for the people in Texas and for
Yeah.
But it's made me appreciate the California weather.
Well,
seeing some of that
I
stuff.
wanted to talk about Texas for a minute. We have a lot of friends in Texas.
We do.
I'm sure a lot of people watching this tonight. Maybe you live in Texas. Maybe you have your powers back on, but a lot of people are working without power right now.
And water.
A lot of people don't have water, and we are praying for you guys. I've called a few pastor friends of ours, and just checking on them, texting them. Thinking of simple things like water and stuff. Your cell phone being charged doesn't become a priority anymore.
Right.
Your computer being on, your TV doesn't be on. TV being on. People are boiling snow.
Yeah.
They're melting snow to be able to drink water. That's a big deal. So I'm praying. I hope the Coast Guard or somebody, goes out there and starts giving everybody a hand. Don't you think that'd be the next step?
Well,
Yes,
like
I
the
guess
National
Biden,
Guard or whatever.
President Biden signed something today, so they're starting the process of that. I was wondering. I had asked somebody today. Did they call executive? Did they do a state of emergency yet? Because when they do that, FEMA will step in. The president will
Right.
step
They
in.
have it? Have they?
That's what I was asking. I don't know if they have yet.
wow.
Well, let's
Governor
get-
Abbott.
Google
I'm
that.
gonna find out.
It's
Yeah.
getting to the point now where we have a lot of friends in Texas. They're posting pictures of grocery stores are empty.
Mm-hmm.
People are bum rushing. A friend of mine texted me and said all the drugstores have been smashed in and the drugs have been stolen. It's always interesting to me when stuff like this happens. The drugstores go first, the clothing stores go first. But interesting, anyhow. Praying for them right now.
Absolutely.
Because I can only imagine, if you're young and, you have a little bit of wisdom, you've been camping before, you can figure it out. But for some of the elderly people that need oxygen machines, they need medication or they'll literally die.
Yeah.
People that
yeah.
need insulin that are diabetics. I'm praying for those people because I can't imagine my grandmother or my aunt or uncle needing they have to have medication every week. They have to go to Walgreens or whatever, and now they can't get it.
Yeah, I lived back in that area for 4 years, and generally they're ready for tornadoes, but they're never ready for snow because they might get it once a year, one day, but to have this amount of snow, and I read the forecast, there's another storm coming in. They're saying,
They're saying 2 weeks it should be over, for the most part over.
When you were there, you were in Oklahoma. Like, did it ever snow while you were there?
Yeah,
Oh, it did?
yeah, it did. The first year it snowed for like 2 days, and they did not know what to do at all.
Wow.
No one knew what to do. They shut the entire city down. But Texas doesn't get snow like that either because the
No.
temperature's
not on
like
that.
ours.
Yeah.
No.
It stays pretty consistent.
It started snowing in Oklahoma quite a few weeks back. And apparently they sort of adjusted because they're a little more used to it than Texas is. But a lot of people in Texas are saying they're not used to it. But man, just let's keep them in prayer.
Absolutely.
A lot of stuff I want to talk about today. A lot, some updates on some stuff. The America is rapidly changing, and I hope everyone is paying attention, and I hope everyone is praying. We won't delve too deep into that, but if you have eyes and ears and any kind of discernment, and the Holy Spirit's with you, I should hope that you'd be moved to prayer. Because things are rapidly changing. I also want to talk about for a second. I think it'd be amiss if we didn't mention Pastor Fred Price, Dr. Fred
Absolutely.
Price.
Yeah.
Pioneer.
Oh man, he
Legacy.
was a trailblazer.
Preaching
And,
what? He was from Compton, right?
Crenshaw. Well, his church is in
Crenshaw.
Crenshaw. I'm
That's
not
right.
sure where he was exactly from, but
No,
I know
I
his church.
that's what I meant.
His
His
church
church in
Crenshaw.
Crenshaw.
I was telling somebody came up to me yesterday and asked me. They said, "Who's this guy that Fred something that died?" And I said, "Oh man, let me explain it to you." And for some of you out there that may be listening right now, especially if you're a baby boomer, you're in your 60s or 70s, you remember him well. He was one of the first African American faith-based preachers,
Yeah.
word of faith preachers,
Yeah.
to be on television, which was huge.
Yeah.
And I was explaining to this person yesterday here at the church. And I said it was huge that he was doing that. And I said, for a bunch of reasons, Another reason that he was sort of stood out is he was a teacher and not so much a preacher. So he was on first African American in the 70s to really, not the first I think, but one of the first really worldwide preachers and evangelists to be on television. Then he was a faith-based preacher. And then also he built a multi-million-dollar facility in the middle of Crenshaw.
Isn't that, correct me, Mark, isn't it like the Faith Dome or something? There's like a name
I can't
for
remember
it,
the
right?
name they call it, but
I'll have to look.
if you look at the building, because I remember as a kid that being, do you remember that being on TV? I remember him being on TV.
I remember him being on TV.
They built the stage in the middle of the sanctuary, and all the chairs are surrounding it, and people for years would laugh because they thought it was a concert venue.
When I was a little kid, I could remember seeing that and being like, "Wow,
it's very
that's
unconventional."
massive. Yeah,
yeah, and I saw a video or something somewhere when he was introducing someone, and he said, "This is the house of God."
It's the Faith Dome. It seats 10,145 people.
Amazing.
Yeah, and when he built it, it was the largest church in the country.
And I
at the
could
time.
be
It's not
wrong.
anymore,
Don't quote me on this, but you can Google it. But I think for years, I know a lot of movie stars went to his church in Hollywood. I think Denzel went there for years. Whitney Houston. There's a number of actors that you could watch his show. I remember my mom sometimes would have that on Sunday mornings when they were getting dressed or whatever for church.
Yeah.
And I remember you could turn that on and they would introduce Denzel or something would wave or something from the second row. So that's a big deal that Dr. Fred Price passed away.
You think about Miles Monroe, who passed away several years ago now. But you think about things where he says to leave the earth empty. You got people like Fred Price that has left his mark
Absolutely.
for the kingdom. And the idea that he did not stand, he did what he felt God called him to do. And as a result, his name is known all over the world, and the name of Jesus is known all over the world. He's left his mark. He's left everything in the earth. It's amazing.
Yeah, his son Fred Price Jr. has been preaching now and carrying the torch for a few years now. He's been switch hitting with his dad, and so I'll assume that he's going to be taking the church. And he was just such a general in the faith. And there's so many generals. You mentioned this morning Rance Allen.
Yeah.
I don't know if we got to mention him a few months ago, but he passed away. Rance Allen was a big let me tell you something about Rance Allen. And Tim Johnson is going to be here this week in a couple days. He'll be with us all this week, Sunday morning and Wednesday night, and he'll going to be doing a bunch of awesome stuff. But I've known about Rance Allen from the 90s, from the early or late 80s, early 90s. The Kirk Franklin, Rance Allen duets and stuff, right?
He's like our James Brown.
Kind of like the Christian version of of James Brown.
Yeah,
okay, I'll take that. But Tim Johnson turned me on to his original stuff from the 70s. And the song "I Belong to You," I belong to you. He goes, "I'm yours all alone. Why don't you take me? Why don't you make me just what you want me to be? I belong."
Just gospel.
No. It was gospel, right? But it sounds like Barry White. It sounds like love music. It sounds just like. And I was talking to some of Pastor Sharon. I was talking to some, of course, Tim and Pastor Sharon was telling me, she was like, back in the day, they were taking his album and playing it on secular radios.
I believe it.
Had no idea it was even Christian music.
Oh, just because it just had that sound.
It was that good. I mean, and
it was a love song, man.
Oh man,
vinyl. That would be some good vinyl.
Oh, brother,
it's all gone up in price. I'm checking eBay right now.
Well, and that's sad too. I'd like to talk about that for a second. It's sad how people are more appreciated once they've passed, than when they're here.
I think we've all, unfortunately, especially this last year, but we've all kind of learned that lesson, right? Of like, there's an expression, give roses while someone's still alive, and it's so cliche because every time somebody passes away, we do that. We go, oh man, you got to hug them while they're here and all that. and and then you forget it, like, and then it's just back to, oh, I see Pastor Joel, I see Pastor Jake every day. It's just, and that's a lesson that we need to take seriously. It's like, man, you need to appreciate people while they're still here. Not that they were very much appreciated while they were here, but like you said, all of a sudden this is worth money, and now people want their records, and now people want all that stuff after they pass.
Yeah, and these are not just just family members or friends. These are generals in the faith.
Generals.
These are people that are trailblazing. Rance Allen. We could talk about trailblazers all day in terms of ministry in the kingdom, but the way he would get up and sing, the way he'd move around on the stage, the way he would take his liberty, not everyone did that.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's debatable as to whatever, but a lot of music was introduced and ministering by Andre Crouch that before him it didn't exist.
That's what I was going to say. It's like in that whole era where it was like, hey, Christian music can also be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Exploring kind
yeah,
of.
it can be, like you hear a lot of Andre stuff, you hear Rance Allen's older stuff.
It's not just organ music, right?
Like because the holiness thing,
right.
It's not just holiness music.
You can have a beat, you can have a tempo, you can have a groove.
There's I love the hymns.
Absolutely.
I do. We were raised with so many of those hymns. But then you hear some of Andre Crouch's songs where he says, I'll be thinking of you. Yes, thinking of you. No matter. And you go, is that a Christian album? Yes, it is.
No, the
yeah,
one.
it is. Those are love songs.
Just like he said he would. Just like he's coming back.
He's
got that like
the
disco
game.
beat on it. I loved it.
He's changing the game.
Absolutely.
You know who else changed the game? Who was the guy in not a singer? He was a pastor in Los Angeles, and he had the giant mirror cathedral.
Oh, the Crystal Cathedral.
Cathedral.
Schuller,
Robert Schuller was a trailblazer.
I went to school with his grandkids.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time, just as a side note, being in Anaheim and seeing that building for the first time. I was on my honeymoon, and obviously you've seen pictures and heard about it. Mm-hmm. You and Pastor Jake at some point had told me, I'd always heard that, like, you have to see this place in person.
It's a piece of art.
Now we didn't, go inside or nothing, but just from because we were going to Disneyland, and so from our hotel to Disneyland, we literally drove on the street, like right next to it, and I was stunned. Like architecture. I know architecture can be art. It's one of those things where it doesn't affect me on that level. This was one of those things where a piece of architecture, I turning around and looking at it as we passed it and kept looking at it and kept on. It was that. If you ever get a chance, that building is magnificent.
And I imagine people are listening to this right now and they're, calling out names or whatever.
Sure.
They're all thinking.
It's all in the comments right now.
Yeah, we could sit here and name a million people, but these are some of the people that are more recent. And there's some great people that God has used, but that doesn't necessarily make them a trailblazer either, which is not a negative thing.
No.
But some of the people we're talking about, really blazed a trail.
It's the power of media is really what it boils down to. Is there have been moves throughout history of the Christian faith, but when you add television, you add radio into it, you're dealing with affecting millions upon millions of people. Like even with Crystal Cathedral, the big thing with Schuller was that he promoted this idea that God was a God of peace, that God was a God that helped you in your everyday life, and he also did this thing where he celebrated people's gifts if they were believers or not.
Okay.
And he would bring them on the show because he said, this is a gift that God gave you, so use it on our show.
He had the famous secular, who's the famous
Yo-Yo Ma?
Yo-Yo. He had Yo-Yo. I think he had Yo-Yo Ma at his church at one point, and he had a famous orchestra. I mean, some of the stuff he had in his church was very
anybody and everybody.
Unconventional actors.
Yeah.
Very unconventional.
That's another show that I could remember. You talk about...
By the way, his grandson is a great minister. Mm-hmm. Check him out if you don't know he's watched him before. Pretty solid.
You talk about... you have memories of Sunday morning, like Fred Price being on TV, Dr. Fred Price. It's the same way with Schuller. I can remember that's another one that like Sunday morning you could flip through the channels and you'd see him and he'd have the robe on and all that. That's another memory as a child of like Sunday morning seeing.
Sure, I'll throw a name out there. Remember Ron House?
Absolutely, of course. Dude,
Yeah.
I remember
That's
when
our
he-
area, though.
I
That's
remember
like
when
our
he- yeah,
area.
yeah.
our
Yeah, a lot of
immediate
people
area.
know him though. I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on where. I mean, depends on where his programming was. But I
Right.
mean, you guys remember him, right?
Yeah.
He spoke at camp meeting, and I remember
Sure.
being a little like I was
He's
a,
still alive, though. He's
Yes.
still alive, yeah.
I was a little kid. You know, we're talking about. I mean, I don't even think I was 10 yet. Like a little kid, and because that's our world. And I think we were on TV on Channel 42 as well. And I remember like meeting him, and he was like a celebrity to me. Like it was like, oh wow, it's the
well,
Ron House from TV,
people
you know?
don't know. It's very, very difficult to have a Christian station in our valley
Yeah.
and in the Bay. Very difficult.
Yeah.
So he was able to establish a Christian station in the Bay.
California,
In
Yeah.
Concord.
Yeah, in Concord,
which is
yeah.
unheard of.
Yeah, if you're not from, especially this part of California, you say, well, they do it in L.A. This is not L.A.
Yeah, Concord.
We're close to San Francisco. It's very if I could just be very blunt, it's very anti-Christ here, especially in businesses and
Yeah.
radio and television.
You wear a cross in public, people will yell at you, people will scream
Yeah,
at you.
it's true.
Sure.
If you say something that opposes their lifestyle, they'll try to get in a fight with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah. Everybody thinks they have a plan until they come here and visit. Everybody always says it. It's so funny. They go, "Oh, I'm in California, whatever. I'll tell you what I'll do when I go to California." And we take them to San Francisco, and they're just blown away.
Yeah.
They're just, unless you're from here, you visited often. It's a different world. You have to be called here, and that's. I'm glad we are. We
Yeah.
love it.
I love it here.
We'd be amiss if we did not mention the one and
Yeah.
the only Carmen.
You want to talk?
Oh,
You want to talk
man.
about a trailblazer?
Trailblazer, an ultimate soul winner.
Yeah,
you know, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for so many reasons. I remember when I was a kid. This is before, you know, I really knew. I don't know. Yeah, it would have been before. It would have been the late '80s. I remember my grandmother had his records of him singing hymnals, and he had an afro. And I don't know if anyone's those have got to be
curly,
around
the Italian
somewhere,
afro,
right?
Yeah.
There's got to be some records of Carmen around somewhere. But my grandmother listened to him sing hymns, and she liked it.
We used to go if he ever. I had seen Carmen in concert like 3 times because when he would go on tour. Now Carmen, for people that don't know, and I'm sure we'll get into more, was the first Christian stadium act. Right, he could go and fill up a basketball arena or something
Question
like that.
before you finish: can you compare that to Andre Crouch though? Because Andre Crouch did Live in London. He did some pretty big stadium acts.
Well, I mean,
I'm not debating. I'm asking.
right.
I think we're dealing not with the model, we're dealing with the number of people.
Right. Okay.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Meaning, the model of doing a concert, everybody's done that, but we're dealing with the idea of him packing out stadiums.
Yeah.
He was the first Christian artist to do that.
We used to go,
Are you sure? Because Andre Crouch did some pretty big
they weren't-
concerts.
but I don't think
They were
Andre
concerts.
Crouch-
Yeah, I know, but they weren't like
I don't think Andre Crouch
weren't like
ever went
50,
on
60,
right.
70.
I think live. I'll look it up, but I think Live in
Yeah.
London. I'll check it out.
And I could be wrong. It might almost be worth like calling your dad or something. But I don't think Andre Crouch like went on tour. Like would go on a 40-city tour, all stadiums, and sell out every. Now Carmen, and then on top of that, Carmen's concerts were free.
He was
Him and Green.
Yeah, first ones to do that.
And we used to I've been every time he come to Arco Arena, which is in Sacramento, which is was where the Kings used to play, the Sacramento Kings. We would go all the time, and I saw him in concert like 3 times. And Carmen was, especially for our generation, we were kind of using the comparison like he's our generation's Andre Crouch, right? Like for us, you know, he was Michael Jackson to me. You know, like he was the biggest dude, the biggest name. And we used to drive up to Sacramento, and we'd be sitting up in the upper deck. We didn't get there, but it was packed out. Now, Carmen, we talked about this earlier. At the time, I don't know if it's still a record, but he set a record for a single artist to sell out a stadium. He did in Dallas, and it was 70,000 people.
wow. Yeah,
for,
I read that.
for just him. Like there
Yeah.
wasn't an act before him. It wasn't a series
Yeah.
of 10
No
artists.
openers.
There was no
What do you call it?
openers.
What do you call an opener to concert? You go to a lot of concerts. The opening show. It's like
I mean, like so you like the opener, like you have the headliner.
Headliner,
right? The
but-
headliner
but-
would be, and then you would say open. Like
Open,
you'd be
the
like
person opens.
you'd be like, hey, you know, such and such is opening for Carmen. You would, you know, and you know, even I even go to shows now. Well, not now, but I used to go to shows where you would, you'd still needed 3 bands to sell out a stadium. You know, but Carmen, not only did he do these by himself with no opening act, but he was also a Christian artist. It's not like he was on on secular radio everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it was just.
And he was a soul winner.
Oh,
He did a
man.
lot of. I remember when we were kids going to some of his concerts, and even when he was still packing some stadiums out. We were a little older, going to some of his stadiums, and him having theatrics and him
Oh, the people
him
in costumes.
walking. Yeah,
and-
he'd walk out. I remember we were. I don't remember where, but I remember the Satan
Witch's
bite the dust.
Invitation.
It's okay. It was that
Remember
the
Satan-
cowboy
yeah.
one.
And then a
Yeah.
cowboy come on there, and he was shooting the cowboy.
And then they have the
and-
devils come. I remember.
Yes.
I have a vivid memory of looking down at the stage and him doing that, and he
Yes.
had like people in costumes, like
and the witch's
Satan bite the
invitation.
dust.
I remember being
Terrified.
loved it, but also was terrified of that when the devil tears.
I wanted to bring because I found it like 2
And I
years
think
ago.
Jail's gonna be able to play a piece of that in a second, and we'll go to that. It'd just be cool to share.
I'm
going
going
to
to tell you, I got to spend a day with him one time, and he came to our church. It was pretty awesome.
Oh,
And I was
so
put
awesome.
in the position of like driving around.
Pretty
We
cool
got
dude.
to-
I heard.
we got to talk, and that was one of the things that he was so he was not prideful, but there's a better way of saying it. The thing that he remembered the most about that crusade, 'cause he talked to me about that big
Yeah.
crusade, was that he said that they had 5,000 documented salvations that day.
Wow.
That the altars were filled with
5,000.
5,000 people, and he talked about how he believed that was the record for the most amount of people that were saved in documented. They had paperwork and all that kind of stuff. And he was that was
He's
his main thing.
Experienced.
Yeah, his main thing
Experience.
was not the crowd. His
I've-
main thing was
I
that
heard that.
the concert was for the salvations, and they were able to convert
He
5,000 people.
came here when you're talking about when he came here for a summer conference, and I believe
Which
we had
it's important to note, and I think he's ministered at a lot of churches, but ours was the first church. He said this back in the green room. We met him and spent some time with him.
he told your
And
father
then
this, right?
also, yes.
Yeah.
And then also he said this on stage, this was the first time he had ever been invited to a conference just to speak.
To preach.
Yeah.
We didn't ask him to sing. We said, you don't have to sing. We just want you to stand there. And he did a phenomenal job.
I remember
And
that.
we'll have to.
Yeah.
We're gonna. Bishop's putting some of that stuff together now. We'll air
He
that.
was
It'd be
so
awesome.
nervous all
Yeah.
day long.
Well, I
He
remember.
was so nervous.
I
Yeah.
remember. Obviously, we heard Carmen's coming. Now, I believe this was the year after we had Andre Crouch.
Yeah.
It was within a year or two, so we'd already kind of had that mind blowing, like, whoa, Andre Crouch, But like I said, for our generation, Carmen was,
Oh, let me. I
no,
forgot
go ahead.
something.
Go ahead.
We've got to talk about this. Rap music in the late 80s, early 90s was stricken as Satan's music.
Absolutely,
Carmen put it on the map.
he did.
He made it mainstream.
How?
He did.
He did it on his album. It was the second
I
track
remember.
on the album.
He had the cartoon character on the front
But
of the
he-
CD.
No, that was the
But
kids
he
album.
rapped.
Wait. What is it?
But
Look that up.
he
Look that
rapped.
up. Look that up. Because
But
I'm trying to remember that right now.
I remember the conversations. Carmen did a rap himself.
Yeah,
I
I remember.
remember.
And,
I
and there were other rappers, but he put it on the map. He made it okay for Christians to rap.
Let me see here. Albums.
I don't know if you could say, and I'm not
looking
I'm
this
not debating. I don't know if you could say he did. I remember him doing that, but I don't know if. You know who else died? I'm glad we're talking about Trailblazers today. I just looked them up the other day. One of the Gospel Gangsters.
No way.
Really?
So there's only two of them left. I thought there was three, but I think there was only two this whole time. But one of them died just like a couple, like a month ago.
Yeah.
And they were. I looked them up because I didn't really know a lot about them personally.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently they were very well known for a specific kind of like
They were in the
hardcore
very,
Christian
well,
rap. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right
Gospel
after,
Gangsters?
Yeah,
Right
yeah.
after
This one, dude.
Who was the guy?
That's the one.
Yeah,
Show J-
Yo-
Push
Yo
Press
Kids.
Shake. Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
That's
Yeah.
the one.
I know.
That's the one.
It was an orange tape. I remember that. But I remember when he was coming
It
here.
wasn't that he invented rap.
No, no,
That's
no,
what
no,
I'm
no,
saying.
no, no, no.
What I'm saying though
You're saying
is
he made it
that
okay
in
for
terms
Christians.
Of Christians,
Yeah.
Right.
At that point, it was like what heavy metal has always been for Christians. Like people don't they don't accept heavy metal as a Christian genre.
Well,
And
'cause
they
then
were
you had
doing the
Carmen,
same thing with rap at
and then
the time.
and then you bring into like DC Talk and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I remember when we was coming
Dynamic
here.
Twins.
When he
Remember
was,
them?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Remember the Dynamic Twins? Oh boy.
When he was coming
Turn, hey,
here.
listen. Listen.
Are you gonna-
When we turn the no, I'm not gonna start rapping right now. But you know who else? You got to give credit to the Winans. You
Yeah.
got to give credit to the Winans.
I could do the whole thing right
I
now.
know you could.
It's time.
Time
to make a change. I could do the whole thing
Yeah,
right
we
now,
could all
too.
do it, right? So
Time
That's-
to make that
Don't do
change.
it.
I
Don't
knew
do
you
it,
were
though.
gonna
Of the
do
world
that.
Do it.
today are fading.
Just let him finish.
All of us have had
Just
our
ups and downs. You better think about it or you won't be around. All we need
This
is
is-
a little bit of love.
This is the last episode of the
Heaven up
podcast.
above. Take it from me.
It's simple and plain.
This ain't no game.
You know what I'm saying.
Boy, when that it's
Rap
time,
music in
time to
1980,
make a change.
1987 rap music.
Ooh.
But back to back to Carmen. So he's coming here. So we're all, Pastor Joel and I, we're in the band at the time. So it's kind of that same Andre Crouch thing. We're like, are we going to play with this dude? Like, it was scary. And I remember we had to be here at like 4:00. Church starts at like 7 or 7:30.
Yeah, and
Because that's the only time he could be here because he had to go and get ready.
Yeah, he just come in town. Yeah.
And so I remember we're sitting up there, and I try not to be starstruck when it comes to stuff like this, but you can't help it sometimes. And I remember he walked in, and Carmen was in shape. He was kind of a big dude, right? Mm-hmm. And he had on shorts, but with like combat boots with like socks sticking out, right? And I'm like, this
90s,
must.
yeah.
Oh, I mean, just
Yeah.
right. And I remember he walked in and he was so cool because
So-
you just
so cool.
you never
Super
know
cool.
what to expect in those situations, right?
No.
And I got to shake his hand and talk to him for 10 seconds. But I mean, you go back to, I remember seeing you in concert as a kid, and in that moment you would go, hey, one day you're going to be able to play behind him while he preaches, and you'd be like, not a chance, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when he was preaching, he did. I remember the Godfather thing that he did. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And he equated that to God, and he did all the voices, and he was spot on with all the voices.
You have to give credit to someone like Carmen, who has traveled the world and has ministered and has drawn audiences of hundreds of thousands. And to meet him in person and him be that cool
Yeah.
and that humble.
He was humble like that the entire.
He
it
came in the
was crazy.
sanctuary and the band, we were doing something. And he goes, man, you guys got this. He goes, I'm not even going to try to
Yep.
explain anything to
Yep.
you. Or he's like, because I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be that guy. He goes, you guys got it. Whatever I start, you'll follow, I'm sure.
We were riding in the car, and he'd asked me if I was married and had a girlfriend, and I told him no. And I think I said something like "Bachelor to the Rapture," and he laughed. And then he for like 45 minutes talked to me about being single,
Really?
living a life of holiness.
Well,
what
because he
it
wasn't
takes to
married
do
for
it.
a long time,
Yeah,
right?
and he was like his motive thought was to turn to minister to me.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know,
Bishop's calling me.
yeah.
Hold on.
Says he has.
Hey, Bishop.
Yes,
Let me
sir.
put you on speaker. We are live on the podcast.
Awesome.
We-
Awesome. What's
we-
happening?
We got a question for you, man. We need someone with some years of experience. We're a little young for this.
We're talking about
We were
Carmen.
talking about Carmen and talking about some of the larger crowds he drew. And the question was, did Andre Crouch, was he drawing crowds just as large or larger in his day before Carmen?
I'll tell you what. I just read, and of course, we knew Carmen, and we didn't get a chance to talk to him about this, but I just read where he held the record for having the largest concert crowd in the history of gospel music, at least at that time. And it was I think it was around the 100,000 mark or something like that.
Yeah.
But I know that all the places that we went, that we visited, and we attended his concerts. He had several Greyhound buses, and
Yeah.
he was just an amazing man of God, and an amazing vessel that the Lord used, in so many ways. So I will tell you this, and I know you probably already know this. Carmen was saved under Andre Crouch's ministry at Disneyland.
Whoa.
Wow, that's cool.
I've actually heard that
And
before.
he went there, and he was saved. He gave his heart to the Lord, but it also put a seed in his heart. The creative possibilities in the area of gospel music.
Wow.
And so there was a lot about Carmen that people knew, and a lot of things that they did not know, because First Lady and I were privileged to be connected with Azusa. You know, we knew some of his history from being with Carlton Pearson there at Higher Dimensions Church and attending there. And his roots in music, I guess what I'm saying was, it was a mixture of black gospel. It was a mixture of his Italian roots and things that he had picked up from listening or watching movies in Hollywood. And he was a creative spirit, man, that will be, when I say missed, sorely missed in the earth. I mean, in a way that I don't know that anyone's going to be able to replace him, because of the way that every song, just about every song that he did, and probably the one that's best known as Lazarus, but every song that he ever did was cinematic.
Yeah.
It was very cinematic, very
Champion.
creative, real rich. Had orchestration, stuff that at the time, you know, I had come up under Andre Crouch and you know, all of the old you know, gospel artists like Second Chapter of Acts, and oh my goodness, all of those folks, and we had never heard anything like that. You know, it was absolutely mind-boggling to us, you know, that you could do something like that. And then anyone that's ever been to his concerts, even more so, you know, he had all the theatrical stuff to it. The smoke and the lights, the mirrors, and the animated characters that came up on stage. And he would do warfare, you know, with these animated characters on stage while he was doing his songs. And at the same time, a lot of people didn't know this. He was very shy.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. He was like, we were talking about how humble he was for, you know, accomplishing everything he had accomplished. He was so cool behind the scenes.
And you guys may have seen the post that I posted on my media, all of my media feeds. But one of the things that kind of I don't know, caused me to step back is when we found out. Of course, he preached his very first sermon at our conference a few years ago when he was with us, and I didn't find out really until he got there. You know, that was really his first sermon, and he was asking me all kinds of questions. And I asked him, I said, Carmen, you know, with as many times as you have ministered on, you know, huge platforms, you know, how in the world could you be nervous? And his reply, he said, preaching to me is different. He said, you know, sharing the word of God in sermon form, he said, it's so sacred. And he just didn't want to make mistakes, you know.
Sure. He was. That's a testament to how much he respected the position, respected what he was here to do, which is very respectable, honorable. Yeah, and he did. You know, I don't know if you remember, but the altars were filled, and you know, he hit it out of the ballpark for his first, you know, for his first message. It wasn't, you know, skin diving stuff where you had to have a skin diving suit. It wasn't deep, but it was just scuba diving. Yeah.
It was powerful, you know. And the other thing that I wanted to say too, his brother Mario, who worked for, a lot of people don't know this, is his brother Mario was like a 3rd-degree black belt, and he was like a weapons expert, self-defense expert, you know, and he was one of the first security guys around ORU, Oral Roberts University, and he worked for Bishop Pearson.
Oh, interesting.
And he loved his brother, and after his brother passed, he was never, you know, really quite the same. But
wow, I didn't know that.
An amazing man of God, you know. So,
well, man, I know it's late, Bishop. We're probably almost past midnight now, but I knew you'd be on the road, and I wanted to at least get you to call in and add a little bit tonight.
Well, you happened to catch me. I got my buddy here, Pastor Ron Taylor is here. I wanted to pop in and say hello to you. Maybe he has some comments on it.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Pastor Ron.
Good.
Cut out.
The phone died. But you know, it's so true. When people say the same thing over and over and over again, you have to admit when every time you meet every time someone brings up Carmen, 9 out of 10 of them say he was just a nice guy.
Yeah.
Or a super cool dude, or whatever, however you want to say it. It's awesome. You gotta say it's true. If everyone had a different opinion, you go, well, these 10 different people. But the one thing that everyone keeps saying all over Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and is they keep saying he had a heart for souls, and he's a soul winner, and he wanted people. I was thinking about too is who was the guy that used to frequently pop in our church? He was a singer. Dion? Oh, gosh, what was his name? Had a Jerry curl. Remember, he's on, especially lower sax.
Leon Patillo.
Leon Patillo, was awesome. And I think him and Carmen had a relationship.
Yeah, he came to the church a lot. Leon Patillo did, and he took a liking to my brother, to Pat. And every time he would come, he would talk to Pat, minister to him, and stuff like that. Wow, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah. Now that Carmen has passed, because we're talking about appreciating people while they're here. Now that Carmen has passed, I hope people start pulling up all the old albums. I hope people start delving in and all the theatrical stuff he did, and stuff that right now you could probably find at a thrift store. And the next month or two is going to start popping up on the internet.
I looked for it earlier
something
today.
That's very desirable and maybe even expensive.
I looked for it today, and it wasn't where I remember it being, but it's somewhere around my house. I have a VHS of Revival in the Land, like with the cover on it and everything. And you remember that was one where like the video was in hell, and he had the demons and all that, and they're going to pray. And I was going to bring it in tonight, like, just to kind of look, because it's the actual VHS. I couldn't find it. I know it's somewhere, but when I first heard that Carmen had passed, I saw it on one post, and it wasn't like an official post. So I was going to Carmen's Facebook page to see when an announcement would come. I think you and I talked about that, and so I was looking at all the old posts, and if you've been to his page since he passed away. In the last several months, they've been like, while we're praying for Carmen or while Carmen's doing this, enjoy some old music. And there's all these old videos on Facebook, and I was just watching pieces of them.
Yeah.
And it brings back so many fond memories, like Champion and
stuff like that. Do you remember
an
album, I think it was Carmen, called Riot?
Yeah, that was Carmen.
Was that Carmen's?
R-I-O-T, yeah.
I think that was the last album as a kid, of Carmen's that I really, really, really wanted. Was the album.
Mine was the last one that I remember really getting like that. I remember when Riot came out, but mine was The Standard. And that was the one with him with the Christian flag on the cover.
Oh,
Listen,
yes, of course.
We need to tackle the elephant in the room.
What's
the
that?
The fact that you guys' boy band, was based on your boy band titled Hooked on Jesus, was based on
Jordan?
His song and his music.
Pre-Backstreet Boys, son.
But then you guys did you only did
pre-NSYNC,
Carmen music, right?
Pre-98 Degrees, son.
We did.
And we were multicultural, son.
Boy band.
It was 4 of us. We were called Hooked on Jesus, and the only instrument any of us knew how to play was Joel knew how to play the drums a little bit, and we used to sing "Who's in the House?" JC. That I think that was on that album, the Kid album. We used to sing that song. I joke with Joel with Pastor Joel and Jordan all the time because I go, "Look, we're actually all talented now. We could do a reunion."
I'm waiting for you guys to retour, start touring again.
I bet there are so many thousands of churches all over that are saying the same thing. When we were kids, we did a play or we did a puppet show.
How many plays
to the song,
or
his songs?
How many plays in your life or performances or whatever that people did the Champion?
More than
just
I
as
can
an
count.
example.
More than I can count.
Like it's
that's right. He was a boxer in the Champion, right?
The Champion was a fight. Was a fight between Jesus and the devil.
I remember going to the show and there was a giant. That when he did the gunslinger one, they had characters for everyone.
That's
and
what
then
when
they did the fighting one, there was a giant Satan.
A lot of people watching this right now, the first 5 minutes, they clicked out. They dropped out. But for some of you that have been raised in church, you are geeking. If you're geeking out like we are right now.
You know what?
JL's going to show pictures.
Now that I think of it, he was probably one of the first artists to do actual theatrical.
I think so.
I'm sure
music
he was.
videos.
Yeah.
Music videos.
Yeah, I think he was.
I mean, we could do 3 hours of just talking about Carmen and
Well,
memories.
I was
I
was at JL's house the other day, and he had a couple friends over, and they were eating dinner. And Carmen, I'd gotten the news that Carmen had passed away, and they're all in their 20s,
yeah.
25, 23.
Millennials.
Yeah, and I came
I
out.
mean,
and
we're
I s-
29.
Listen,
so it's okay. We're
I
almost
came
there.
out. I came out like this. I can't believe it. I was
Mhm.
like, Carmen just passed away, and they go. They just kept playing videos. I was like, stop the games. Stop. Listen, I stood in front of the TV and I was like, I'm going to break this down
you
for you.
couldn't have heard what
Oh,
I
I did.
said.
I was like, everybody stop. I'm going to explain to you. You guys are going to thank me later. And I explained to him who Carmen was. And, he had a huge impact in the world. And
The post that we're referring to, the first post I saw, I was the same way. I was like, oh, no. And I saw
Yeah.
that you had commented on
I
it.
waited. Well, I waited.
And then
I
I
waited
waited.
and I made a couple calls of people I knew were close to him
Mm-hmm.
recently. I made a couple calls to make sure it was accurate.
Because then
It
you
was.
called me and said, hey, man, did you
Yeah.
hear that Carmen passed away?
Because right now
And I
a lot
said-
of people, it's good advice too. If you see anyone the internet says has passed away, always wait.
Sure.
Call someone, check on that before you start posting your
Right.
condolences, because it's not always it's not always accurate whatever the internet says.
It like you said, to kind of bring it home. I mean, Carmen was amazing. He was a trailblazer. He will be incredibly missed. But I thank God that we all, our generation, even the generation before it, have such fond memories of Carmen. Like, he was the coolest in his, like, he'd have the blue suit with the black, like, I mean, he was the cool. Am I wrong? Like,
No.
early 90s, he was the coolest dude. And it was just.
When we talk about things like this, and you said to bring it home, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna,
Or else we'll do
I'm
this.
gonna
all
Aging
pack-
night.
yourself
you-
so bad, bro.
Well, no, it's good. I love that we're doing this because we remember as a kid growing up
Right.
with him, but then there were adults that were really touched by him.
Yeah.
He was like their version of Andre Crouch.
Joel, I will never forget pulling up 3 days before he was going to be here, and groupies started to show
Yeah.
up. We had people showing up in RVs. They were going to wait for him for 3 days so they could see him preach.
We had
Yeah.
to. I remember we
3
had to,
days.
the band.
Well,
had,
like
the band
fan
and the choir,
clubs, like
Yeah.
fan clubs.
The band and the choir had to come in. Remember, this is at like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and service started at 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we were told to come in through the side door. There's a door that's on the side of the stage, and because we were never going to be able to get in. And I remember getting here. It was like 3:45, and the line was already around the church. Like, it was from the front of the church, and it was already wrapped around.
Yeah,
I forgot the name of that street is right there. And that was at like 4 o'clock, dude.
Yeah.
And when we got here, or when church started, it was packed in
Yeah,
here.
people
I mean,
were waiting to get in.
people were standing. Like, it
And
was packed.
a lot of people were touched that night. If we could take away anything from this, because this is not just a memorial to everyone that's passed away in the last
Right.
few months or the last few years. What we can take away from this is that God has a plan for all of us,
Mm-hmm.
and if we will obey Him, we will adhere to His voice. Tell somebody about Jesus.
Yeah.
You can change the world too. You may
Yeah.
not be called to stand on the stage. Maybe you are. You may not be called to be a singer. Maybe you're a teacher. Maybe you're an evangelist. Maybe you're just barely saved and you've been wanting to tell someone else about Jesus. Every time you tell someone about Jesus, you're doing what Carmen did. He just had a larger stage. He had a larger platform.
Right. That's all.
And so, same thing with Rance Allen and Dr. Fred Price. We can look at all these guys and thank God for them. And now I think the question is, who will step up? Who will
You
take
and I-
that position? Who will preach faith like Fred Price? Maybe not exactly like him, but preach faith like Fred Price did. Who will stand in front of thousands and break the mold?
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of churches that saw what Carmen was doing and going, no music
Right.
videos, Carmen. That looks like Whitney Houston, or that looks like one of those secular. That looks like In Living Color. Because remember he had dancers and stuff in the videos.
I'm dating myself. Come on.
Yeah. So, but you know what? If we allow God to use us, He'll use us.
Well,
if we want to be used, He'll use us.
You and I talked about that the other night. Of, we're losing a lot of generals. And it's time for
Our loss is heaven's gain.
absolutely, but it's time for people have to step up and replace these guys. Replace might not be the proper word, but we
Fill
need
the
to
position.
fill the position, because these were generals in the faith, and we could go down of other ones that we've lost this last year. But it's time to step up, and it's time to, just for our generation, and even the generation after us. It's time to step up and lead the generation to. We're losing a lot of generals, man, but.
Well, there's a shift in the spirit realm, and it's getting late here, so we're going to finish. But there's a shift in the spirit realm, and when these positions are handed to them, they're to be taken seriously, not taken lightly, and they walk in obedience and walk in authority. And when God calls them home, there is a weight and there is a responsibility and
Sure.
there's an anointing that must be carried out. And I believe anyone at this table or anyone watching this, if you are willing and you are available, God will use you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Can
He'll
I
allow
say
you
something?
to, sure,
Please.
to defend and fight for the faith.
The other day, the Lord said something to me. He said, "You may not have national platform, but you can have spiritual impact."
Sure.
That even though we live in a TikTok society where everybody is trying to be that next up and coming thing, and we've seen this in the last few months. We've had several preachers that were the up and coming thing, and you're finding
Right.
out they're having a hard time. Everyone's trying for that fame. But we can have, if you are a witness within your neighborhood, if everyone knows in your neighborhood you're a believer and you're converting them one by one, you have the same impact as Carmen did.
Absolutely.
You have the same impact. So we have to learn to have spiritual significance.
Amen.
Not TikTok star, not a
Yeah.
YouTube star, but that we need to build spiritual significance.
That's
I was
a
just
great
telling
word,
someone.
Pastor.
I was just
Great
telling
word.
someone yesterday that I was saying. So we was talking about Dr. Fred Price and some other great trailblazers, and I was telling them that, a lot of people believe that if you have a really large church or if you're on television, there's a lot of great churches that have continued during the pandemic that don't have Facebook. They don't have
Right.
They don't have the cameras and the lights like we do, and they don't have all that stuff. And they're very significant in the spirit realm. But I said there are little mothers in churches of 10 people that sit over in the corner, and nobody, you may not know their name. T.D. Jakes may never know, Joel Osteen may never mention them, but in heaven they are a rock star. They are
Celebrities
a
up there,
warrior.
yeah, just-
In heaven, they know that when she prays, things adjust.
Wow.
Because she belongs. She has nothing else but God. She belongs to God. And I think a lot of times people think that, you have to have that platform, and that's not the case. It's very different in the spirit realm. Those that are submitted to God, they increase in power. Those
Amen.
that humble themselves, God lifts them up. Those, not to say that people that have large platforms, God doesn't use them. It's just different. But thanks for saying that. It's very true.
That was great.
It's getting late, man. This has been fun.
To
Good
those
time.
generals,
Come back.
we salute you.
Man,
Thank you.
God
Job
bless.
well
Thank you,
done.
Thank you. Be encouraged, guys. We love you. Thanks for listening. This has been a wonderful podcast
Great.
with Brother Chris, Pastor Jake, and we will be back soon. Love you guys. Take care.
Love you.